So, hello everyone. I've got with me today Todd and Rebecca from Select Sires, a company in Ohio and all around the world that works in the agriculture field, if I understood the requirement, the domain correctly, in genetics and herd management and helping farmers breed better livestock. So thanks for coming today and agreeing to have a chat about your experience with introducing BDD into your teams. So basically, the story is that Todd came to us a few months back to ask for a little bit of help on improving their collaboration practices and to introduce behavior-driven development into those teams. So Todd, I guess, what were the biggest challenges you were facing that sort of drove you to try to introduce BDD? What sort of problems were you having? What impact was that having on your teams?
So we've been doing some of the agile processes. We've been reading, having some interesting discussions about some of the agile books. We've been doing some Three Amigos sessions. We've been doing a number of things to get better requirements. And what we were coming up with is we would think we would have requirements. We kind of thought of those as, okay, let's stop talking about what we need to do and let's build it. And we'd get partway done with building and we'd figure out, oh, we hadn't talked about this functionality or what happens when this happens. And what we were seeing is we were iterating, but we would spin and spin and spin. And then we'd get to another issue was we would get to the testing phase instead of doing that as we were kind of building. And we'd find that the QA group would find other issues. And needless to say, there's stress involved when you're trying to get something out. The developers were just trying to get what they wanted done. The product owner was not happy that we weren't able to get the product out. And the QA team was not happy because they were getting stuff that didn't work or didn't cover certain situations. And we knew there was a better way. And so we reached out to you. We had a good conversation. And we started some of the Agile and BDD blueprint training and then engaged with you to kind of make sure we're using the practices and disciplines correctly.
Awesome. So, yeah, we did start out with a bit of sort of just training on the general principles of BDD and the general practices like example mapping and feature mapping and how to write really nice requirements in Gherkin format and all of that good stuff. What would you say the biggest differences you found in that sort of approach compared to the sort of more traditional? I mean, you're doing Agile, but compared with that, how would you say the BDD approaches that we talked about in the initial training compared to what you were originally doing? Were there any aha moments?
I think that the biggest thing for the team is we didn't spend less time, but we kind of had a guide. The different team members would lead those sessions. We kind of had guided sessions and we had better output from a meeting rather than spending an hour and a half talking about something and not really having any concrete output. But the use of the BDD techniques, talking through specific examples, allowed us to build those acceptance criteria, even a lot of times in the Gherkin format, and have an output. And so we had moved our common understanding forward as opposed to talking for an hour. Everybody was there. And then we weren't any further. The BDD approach let us move forward. We still spent a lot of time. It was a lot of effort, but we had output and we moved forward, and that let people catch up too. So instead of prior, everybody had to be involved in every meeting, which is not super efficient. Now, if somebody wasn't able to attend a meeting, there was an output that they could look and they could catch up very quickly, or we could bring another person in and say, hey, here is where we are with this. And they could see the examples. They could see, how a specific person was expecting the system to behave and what outputs they were looking for.
So it's me. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think one of the things that I really appreciated was the ability or the encouragement to give concrete examples. That was something I would in the past kind of think, okay, well, we need this product, but I didn't always know how to explain what it was that I was looking for. And in the process of doing really concrete examples, I could explain how I use the product or what our users would be looking for. And it changed the conversation. Like Todd was saying, it became less just having discussions and more working through how we would want the product to be. And it gave us some real outcomes to be able to work towards.
So it gave a bit more structure and a bit more focus to the conversations, as opposed to what I see a lot of teams doing initially is you have discovery sessions where there's a lot of rambling, a lot of wandering around the subject going on, and not a lot gets recorded. So like you're saying, Todd, it's sort of hard for people who weren't there, or even people who were there, to remember what was actually said. But with the BDD approach, which I saw you doing it really well, you were getting really concrete, really clear Gherkin scenarios out. What would you say? I mean, it's never a sort of easy thing to do to introduce practices like that. What would you say the biggest challenges were for the teams to adopt this way of working?
I think for the development team specifically, they were coming in at different levels of understanding of the product. And so the people that knew more about it, or may had some discussions with Rebecca in the past, knew more. And so they were stressed or eager to move forward and get to something new, but the rest of the team needed to ask questions. And so there was this kind of mismatch of where we didn't have a common language to start with. And people's like, wait a second, we're going into too much detail on this thing, or this appears that we're headed down some other set of examples that I don't think we need to. And so as the team did it, they started gaining a kind of a value of heading down the different roads and capturing some detail to figure out, do we need to head down there anymore? And so it helped the team go from being stressed about the thing to saying there's value in every one of these questions. And so the different people coming from different places started valuing the questions that the other team members had rather than being annoyed by them. So I think we developed a common language as people got more familiar with the experience of feature mapping, example mapping, and how that process worked. They started valuing the questions and the things that other people brought to the table.
So I did see the teams picked up those discussions, those techniques really quickly when we went through. We applied these techniques to your live discovery sessions, and there were a lot of lively conversations going on in those sessions. So Rebecca, from a product owner's perspective, what would you say the biggest impact on the whole flow, on the whole process of those conversations would have been?
I think the main thing is that we always came out with something out of our discussions. We always actually discovered something. And in the past, I think sometimes, like Todd said earlier, we would be, as product owners, giving an idea or a concept and thinking that it was really clear. And we would walk away and say, okay, we've communicated that. And then the technical team would start building it, and we would just not even be on the same page. And as a person coming from business without a lot of work previously with our technical teams, I didn't understand how important it was for me as the business representative to be so involved with all of it, and really taking ownership of that whole process, and then seeing what a difference it can make was really valuable. And being involved, and the more that I'm involved, the better results we have, because I'm available to answer questions as the build is happening. And that was something that I couldn't encourage enough the other business people to get involved in the process, because it changes the conversation completely, and it takes the guesswork out of much of what we're doing. And I do think one of the things I have noticed, and I don't know if this is typical or not, but we have had the QA people in a lot of our discovery sessions, and hearing that whole process, like, so they're aware of what that end goal is, and they've been very much like helping with making sure that we've got the give and win then outlined correctly so it can be automated and stuff like that. So I do feel like they've been really involved in the whole process.
Yeah.
It also brings in energy, so that the app dev team was very energized by the presence of an engaged product owner, because they could see that they were actually making progress, and we were actually doing something that was going to be useful to the business, as opposed to, sometimes you get kind of drive-through requirements. Somebody asks you for something, and they expect it without any engagement. The engagement process between Rebecca and the team produced an energy that was, I think everybody could kind of feel it. People wanted to be on this project.
And we have 3-week sprints that we work in, and we have demo days at the end of each sprint. And the team that's working on my product, every time I'm like, okay, guys, if we're not ready to demo something, it's okay. We can take a session off. I realize there's a lot going on, and they're so determined for delivery and like so eager to make that happen. And we haven't had a demo day where we haven't had something real to demo and real value being built and added. And I think that goes to what Todd's saying about getting that excitement, because on both sides, we're able to see what's being accomplished and it's real, and we're not having to backtrack and fix something that wasn't done right. We're actually able to keep moving forward. So that's really fun. And I love seeing the passion of the QAs and of the developers and everything. So
Brilliant. That's a really good feedback. So what advice would you give for any teams out there who are sort of looking to or wanting to adopt BDD or don't know whether they should adopt BDD? What sort of advice would you give them?
I came into the process as a product owner just as Select Sires was starting to investigate and use BDD. And so for me coming in, I kind of thought that was the norm. And I hadn't seen it in past work, but I also hadn't been that closely involved. I wasn't a product owner prior to that. And so, but then I started having conversations with others, both in the organization and outside of the organization, and realized that it's not the norm. And I thought, why wouldn't you do this? Because of the results that I had seen, and of the way that I was able to engage in the process and really help things move forward and keep that excitement going. And I think it feeds off of everything feeds off of each other. You get an excited product owner who knows that what they're contributing is actually going to be built. You get excited developers who know that what they're developing is appreciated. And it's just this real momentum that can be built. So I would definitely say that it's a process that should be adopted and used.
The other thing that I would think of is we were trying to use the BDD practices. We were doing some example mapping and feature mapping even before we kind of engaged with you. But the engagement actually helped the team kind of coalesce around them, because everybody else thought that somebody else wasn't doing it exactly right, or we weren't sure if we were doing it right. But once we engaged with you and you gave us some pointers, we saw it more in practice. The team really kind of grabbed a hold of it, and it's now we're starting to use it in other projects. So other projects that we've had some struggles in the past. This is just the way we do things now. So read as much as you can. But I think we got great value out of the engagement with you, whether it was some of the video series, the kind of the workshop training, but certainly the engagement to be part of our project was incredibly helpful. The team gained confidence, and they've said, this is now our process. So just do it.